Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van de ParaPodcast met Johan van Voorthuijzen. En dat is de eerste sinds lange tijd. De vorige aflevering verscheen 22 september 2024. Maar zoals veel luisteraars weten is Johan op 13 februari dit jaar op 62-jarige leeftijd overleden. Of beter gezegd, overgegaan. Hij was net begonnen aan een comeback na een lange ziekteperiode. Sinds april 2024 trad hij weer op. Tegelijkertijd zijn we toen gestart met deze serie podcast. Deze nieuwe aflevering is een eerbetoon aan Johan. En die maken we precies op de dag waarop hij 63 jaar geworden zou zijn. We zijn te gast in de mooie 16e eeuwse ruimte van de spirituele stichting Sakita in Haastrecht. Een locatie waar burgemeesters hebben gewoond die volgens de verhalen hier nog steeds rond waren. Dank aan Laura Jansen van Sakita dat we gebruik mogen maken van deze ruimte. Mijn naam is Jaap van Sandijk en naast mij zit co-host en cameraman Ton de Vriend. We praten straks met Wia, de vrouw van Johan, maar we beginnen met een heel bijzondere gast. Europa's bekendste medium Derek Ogilvie, bekend van vele tv-programma's. Tegenwoordig treedt hij veel op in theaters en zalen met zijn tournee Up Close and Personal. Mr. Ogilvie, or can I say Derek?
Of course.
We are honored to have you as our guest in our podcast.
It's great to be here.
The reason you are here is very special.
It is very special, isn't it?
Yeah. On March 24, you performed in Vlaardingen in the Delta Hotel.
I did.
I was there with my wife. You did readings with people in the audience and you passed messages from the spiritual world. And then it happened. Johan contacted you. Can you describe what happened on that March 24?
I've been doing smaller venues since 2021, 22. And because there was I used to do theatre shows. And there was obviously COVID hit and the Dutch government had certain rules about how many people could be in a certain location. I think it was 50 people 1 meter apart. So obviously from a theatrical point of view, or doing theatre shows, it was impossible to do large venues. So we decided to do smaller venues.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started doing the smaller venues, I realized that something unique was happening, that the spirits were all talking to each other. When you've got a very large venue, of course you hear the voices of the spirit world, but they weren't, from my experience and knowledge and understanding, they weren't communicating with each other, but in a small space I realized they were. And generally when they're talking to each other, as you can imagine, instead of talking over each other, one spirit takes control. Mm-hmm. And the other spirits, maybe the host, you call it a host. So a spirit will be the host, and the other spirits will communicate with that particular host and say, listen, can I speak now? Or, hey, can I interrupt for a second because I want a message for my loved one in the audience.
There's always one who is the strongest.
Yeah. And guess who was the one?
Yeah.
It was Johan.
It was Johan.
And he came through very early on in the up close and personal event. I call it, it's not really a show because you were there. I don't like to call it a show. I think it's more of an experience.
Yeah, it is.
We spend 3 hours together. Yeah, there's a 20-minute break, but we spend 3 hours together. And I introduce people to what really happens in my world, what I see, what I hear, what I feel, what I see, what I hear, what I feel. And Johan, I think he was second or third spirit to come through, and he was incredibly strong. And the evening in Vlaardingen was sensational.
Yeah,
and he was directing. He was directing the traffic.
Yeah, he sent you to corners of.
Yeah, well, he would help me with direction. He would help the other spirits calm down. He would help the other spirits be clear with their communication, and that happens generally. As I say, we're currently on tour, and what happens is there is, on the majority of occasions, one spirit who does take over. Maybe it's someone's father, someone's mother, someone's son, but Johan on that particular evening was the one who was a sensational host.
What made it sensational?
I think the clarity, his ability to communicate clearly. I mean, you were there. You saw the reaction from people.
It was amazing.
Yeah, people are sitting literally dumbfounded. People are sitting with their jaws open.
Yeah,
people are overwhelmed with the quality of the the detail and how detailed it is. I mean, basically, there's people in the room, and I'm able to directly go to each person, give them a particular message, and find the people in the audience. And even if people have moved seats, the spirit world tell me exactly where to go. So we're doing something very unique on these up close and personal shows, and we're doing something that's taking it to the next level. I think people are coming with an open mind, but are leaving completely flabbergasted by what's being achieved. And going back to Johan again, it was the reason I'm here today is to honor him and to thank him, and to also talk about that event and talk about what I do, and of course tell everyone about it.
There are not so many people who call themselves a medium, and then there are media who are big and not as big. You wouldn't do that for just any other medium. What makes Johan so big then?
Oh, well, you have to remember he's passed.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more unique for me, because obviously I meet many people who do similar work to me, but on very few occasions have I had communication with those who've actually crossed over into the spirit world. So to have someone come through, and to have someone, as I say, direct the traffic, and have someone be so clear, and have someone who helped so many other spirits in the room communicate with their loved ones was so beautiful. I think I was actually almost in tears. Do you remember? I came over and hugged you and said how much he...
Exactly.
And then giving you personal information from him. And and it was emotional, it was beautiful, it was dynamic.
Yeah. Have you ever had other experiences with people that strong, with such a strong contact?
Yeah, I have had. Well, I've been doing this now for almost 25 years. The first show I ever did was on the 12th of May, 2001. And I had a radio show dating from January, February 2001. So I've had a lot of experience of doing, as I say, let's call it shows. But as I say, generally when I do a show, there will be one spirit who controls the room, and there will generally be that spirit who helps all the other spirits to come through. Not all spirits know how to communicate. I mean, there's some... I think people come along and they have this Hollywood process of thinking the spirit world is like certain movies. And I think with me, I'm from Scotland, so we have a zero tolerance on bull, if you understand what I was trying to say there. So I'm very honest about what I see, what I feel, what I hear. I'm very direct, and I think people, especially in the Netherlands, people really appreciate that, because the Dutch people are very like Scottish people. There's a zero tolerance on bull. So for me, it's always wonderful when a spirit controls or helps to control the room, because if you've got multiple spirits talking over each other, it can get very, very complicated for me and confusing. And that's happened in some events. I mean, there's sometimes that, I'll start a show and 4, 5, 6 spirits are all talking over each other, and it can get confusing for everyone. And it takes me 5 or 10 minutes to control the room. And then hopefully, as I say, someone like Johan comes through and directs traffic. Yeah. It's a bit like if you think about having a birthday party, or you think of having a wedding, you have a wedding planner or a wedding host. Who
An
says,
organizer.
Who says, the next speech is from Tom, the next speech is from Jaap, the next speech is from Gerrit, the next speech is from Peter.
An organizer.
And that was what Johan was doing.
You were saying, I can remember, Johan is running this room.
Yes, and I said that directly to you. And but his strength and ability to do it was where I would say that the next level was. Okay. The next level of his clarity. And there's spirits who can run the room, but there's also spirits who run the room and also have another level of clarity. And he had that other level of clarity. And to answer your question from a few moments ago, that was a uniqueness. And that doesn't happen very often. The absolute clarity that because he's talking to other spirits and helping them show me detail. So when you walk to someone, you can say, by the way, your dad's here, his name's Frank. Oh, by the way, you work as a nurse. By the way, your birthday's on the 22nd of February. Oh, by the way, your dad's here. He passed on a Monday. He died at 8 o'clock in the morning. His name's Tony. and he's telling me, you just moved house last week. So when details are that precise, unquestionable detail, and that's what I love when I do my work. I'm very conscious of, and I have been always conscious of detail. I think it's coming back to really my growing up, and I was very into mathematics, very into numbers, very into 1 and 1 has to be 2, and 4 times 2 has to be 8. So when I do it, I don't like ambiguity. I don't like things not being completely correct, and I get quite frustrated. Maybe you noticed when you came to the show. I get quite frustrated when I don't have that clarity, and maybe then I have to stop a particular reading and then go back later once I've understood what I've been shown. And sometimes people also need time. Sometimes people forget, or sometimes people haven't told other friends or relatives or family members who are at the show particular details. There's lots of times I'll say to a mother who's sitting beside a daughter, by the way, you know, your daughter's been having headaches, and the daughter's like, oh, I've never told my mum this, I wanted to keep it quiet. But, so we're always, I'm always conscious about that clarity. But I think really it's because of, you know, how I've worked and where I've been, and the television shows I've done in the various countries, and the countless theatre shows I've done, and the current shows I'm doing up close and personal. I mean, I've been on television now for almost 20 years. I was the first psychic ever to have a television show in the UK on a network. Other psychics had been on what we called it satellite then. Other psychics were on satellite channels, and I was the first ever psychic in the UK to get a network show in 2005. So I've always been under scrutiny and questioned and been given a hard time, and therefore I'm very conscious, as I say, of detail and quality of what I do. But you know what, going back to doing shows, you know, I come off at the break or I come off after a show and I analyse everything to see, is it questionable? What's the quality? What's the detail? You know, I have a great support network around me, and they're also very conscious of giving me direction from the perspective of understanding how people perceive me, because there's what I perceive of myself and what I do, and it's how an audience perceives me and sees me. You know, we just went and had a coffee there in the little bakers here. And the women in there. I went to the loo and I'm with one of my buddies, and I come out and they're all saying, "Oh, is that Derek from television?" So there's a perception even of the ladies in the bakery down there of who the Derek Ogilvie is.
We're now here in Haastrecht.
Yes.
In this ancient room. Johan did perform here before. Is that something you can notice? Is that something you can experience? This is an old...
Well, let's put it this way. The minute I walked in here, I went...
What did you feel?
You saw my face when I walked in here. Just the energy in here is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there with me as we walked in, and I'm like, wow.
What kind of energy is that? What do you feel?
I think there's a purity, there's a clarity, there's just a feeling of calmness.
A lot of mayors used to live here, former mayors of Haastrecht, and according to the owner here, Laura Jansen, they're still moving around.
Well, I don't know if the mayors are here. I've not been... What do you call them? Burgermeisters?
Burgermeisters, yes. Yeah.
And my Dutch isn't so bad, is it?
No, not at all.
I think that, you know, if you're asking me who's around, I switch on and switch off. A lot of people say to me, am I constantly in mode? No, I know where to go to. I think I've explained it before in many, many interviews. If you think about being an Olympic runner and you're in the 100 meters and you're going to the starting blocks, you're not thinking at that point about what you're having for dinner. You're thinking about running the race. So literally a few moments before I start a show is when I go into mode.
Focus.
Yeah. And literally after a show, when people are maybe coming to me for a photo or an autograph or whatever, I'm recognizing people for the first time. Literally my mother once came to a show way back years ago, and I didn't even recognize her in the audience. You're in such a mode of focus that you don't see, that you don't you are in a different place. You're in a different place that's so unique to yourself, and that's what can be difficult about my life.
It can make people lonely, people like you, medium.
I do suffer from that.
Johan used to say that, and his big friend, Peter van der Hurk, I don't know if you know that name.
Of course.
He also died, Johan died, Peter van der Hurk died, and somebody in Leidse, Beb, her name is. So they all died after each other, and they all say it's quite lonely.
No, what do you mean by it's quite lonely?
People might reject you by saying, "Oh no, I'm not going to speak to him. He's reading my mind."
I don't know if I've perceived that from people. What's hard for me is coming off the vibe and hitting that place that's the reality of life. Now, I'm not saying the reality of my life is bad. What I'm saying is you're on that high, and you come off the high, and that can be difficult. So that's why I've become very interested in psychology. I'm writing a couple of books, and one of the team who's here is going to be laughing at me because I've been writing this book for a long time. And every time I meet him, one of the camera guy who's actually making the doc, Peter, who laughed at me the other day because his first thing to me was, "Hey, have you finished your book yet?" So I'm writing a couple of books. I had an idea for one book, and it's turned into two books because I'm very interested in how the mind works, and I'm very interested in how we deal with the mind and how we deal with thought and emotion and how we deal with our conditioning and programming. Because for me, it's helped me tremendously from dealing with what I do, because what I do is something that not everyone believes in, and people can be very skeptical of and critical of, and that comes with what I do, and that's hard. So there's what you do, and people think, wow, you do something extraordinary, crazy, or it's bullshit. Sorry, I've said the word now. You have to bleep that out. And then you're also dealing with how you perceive maybe people see you. Are they seeing the real me, the kind me? And I think I'm quite kind and loving, although I have my moments like everyone else. And you're maybe fighting against a perception of that people have of you that you don't want them to have, because I think for me, I just want to be loved and like everyone else does.
Yeah.
But you have to go with the flow of, half the people like you, half the people don't like you. Which is fair enough, but that can be really hard.
Yeah.
That can be really hard.
Yeah, that's life. A question we would like to ask as friends of Johan. You had this experience in Vlaardingen. How does that work? Are you still in contact? Does he sometimes pop in, pop out, or is it just...
I'm going to tell you something that's genuine and true and honest. He was with me yesterday.
That's amazing.
And that is 100% honesty to you. He was with me yesterday.
How did you know?
Because I can feel him, because I know... Look, when you connect with the spirit world, all the spirits are on a certain frequency. Look, we know of you because you vibrate. Okay? So we have you, and you are the entity. Yeah. But we also have your voice. So we know when we hear you, it's you, and we know when we see you, it's you. Tom, when we hear you, it's you. When we see you, it's you. When I connect with the spirit world, they're all on a frequency. So when I'm doing a show, I could have 10 spirits speaking to me alternatively, but I know who they are. I know where they are in the room because I recognize that frequency.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know his frequency.
And how do you recognize the frequency?
Well, it's like recognizing a voice.
Yes, exactly.
Or it's like recognizing the look and feel of someone.
Yeah.
So I see your face and I know it's you. And I hear your voice and I know it's you. Now, if people are listening to this as a podcast, they know it's me because they can hear my voice.
Yes.
And if they're watching it on YouTube or on a social media platform, they see us. So they know it's us. So for me, to explain it as clearly as possible, or simply as possible, when I'm in a room and I may have someone's son who's hanged himself, and I may have someone's father who's jumped in front of a train, and I may have someone's child who's been lost in a vehicle accident, and I may have someone who's passed with cancer, and I may have another lady in the corner, and she's had COPD, and then I've got a gentleman who in the other corner, and he's had a brain hemorrhage, and then I've got someone over in the other corner, and they had a they hang themselves.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm doing a show, I know exactly where those spirits are.
Yeah.
I know exactly who's talking to me anytime, and they're all at some point communicating with each other, and that's why these up close and personal shows are so incredible, that I'm jumping around speaking to 4, 5, 6, 7 spirits all at the same time, and I can interject. So I can go to someone in the corner and their father speaking, go to someone else in the front row, their child speaking, and then I can jump around. So with Johan, I know his frequency.
Yeah.
So, and I think he came through yesterday.
And did he have a message or?
No, he was helping, because we had a quite a strange experience yesterday, and I don't want to get into details, because a lot of people come to shows and their private life is their private life, and we don't record those particular shows because people need to feel safe. Some people have been abused by a parent. That happened in a show recently in Groningen, and maybe that person only felt safe enough to talk about it in the room and didn't want to share it with anyone else externally to the room. Maybe someone's lost a child under strange circumstances, and they don't want to discuss generally. So we had a show yesterday that was very dynamic. We had a couple of shootings, a couple of murders at that show, and there's a couple of people that hanged themselves, and he was there as, again, directing traffic and helping me. Yes, he has a unique ability.
I thought he was only doing that in Vlaardingen because I was there, that I maybe took him.
I don't want to appear that I've stolen him from you.
No. But I know Gerrit, your coach, if I may mention him.
Yes, he is.
Gerrit said to me, maybe Johan just joined you, or you took him with you, or I don't know. I did say, and you said that in your show, did you ask Johan to be here? And we had our dinner in the hotel, in the Delta Hotel, before your performance event. And then I did ask Johan, will you be there?
We're both struggling to call it a show, aren't we? Because I know I'm using it as a reference point only. Because a show means showbiz. It means, and it's got a slight hint of disrespect to people. How can it be a show when someone's hanged himself? It's not a show.
Yeah.
It's giving someone. We had a lady the other day, and her son had hung himself, and you can imagine. You literally walk over and say, "Listen, there's a boy beside you who's hanged himself," and she said, "I'm here for my son." What can you say to a mother?
Yeah.
What can you say to a mother when
it's hard?
It's hard. So and a spirit who comes through to validate their positioning, that doesn't mean they're in trauma. They're validating their position. So because you've hung yourself doesn't mean you're hanging constantly. It just means that's how you say hello. That's how we recognize you. We recognize you from a name, or we recognize you how you've passed, or we recognize you from some other detail. Yeah. Okay. So, and then particularly yesterday was a very dynamic experience. And
Johan was there.
Before the show.
Before the show.
Before the show.
He was directing you.
Before the show. He was with me before the show. Now, also, we're meeting up today, but so I can feel him around, and I can feel the want to help.
Yes, he always used to do that.
The want to. I'm using a reference point here that I hope it doesn't sound egotistical, but I'm on the spot here to try and put things into some sort of words to take me to take me to another level of communication with the spirit world.
He's actually helping you.
Yes.
To a next level.
And I mean that completely and utterly sincerely.
It sounds very special.
Well, why do you think I'm here?
Yeah. Yes, of course. That's why you're here, to honor him.
I don't do podcasts.
No. And you don't talk about other media.
No, I don't.
By exception, you do this now about Johan.
Yeah, I never do podcasts.
No. So what does this mean for?
I keep a lot. I keep my private life very private. Yeah. I think that's always been very special for me. There were times when I was on television for 9 years, and it was a joy to do it, but also I found it very difficult to be that person that people wanted me to be rather than who I really was. Because at the time that I did have my TV show, I was going through some difficult times in my life. So I always found it difficult. I always wanted to go on TV and talk openly and honestly about really how I felt, rather than what the expectation was about the audience and Derek Ogilvie. Mm-hmm. So if I had a TV series coming out, obviously I'd do the rounds of shows. I'd be on Boulevard, or I'd be on Life for You, or I'd be on Coffee Tide, or I'd be on Show News, or I'd be in various magazines. And the conversation was always, what's the show about? What have you got? And I wanted to say, look, my buddy's just killed himself, or I've been suffering from mental health issues for a long time, and I'm very interested in how the brain works, and there must be lots of people out there who have also got a similar situation, and I really want to talk about it. But I was always advised that wasn't always the best thing, because not everyone wanted to hear that. But I think as we've grown, as human beings, we're more and more interested about mental health, and we're more and more interested about helping each other, and it's become more prevalent about discussing about issues such as that. I mean, I had a breakdown when I was 18, and was a weekly visitor to the local mental hospital. Mm-hmm. And I was an outpatient for over a year, because I found it really hard to fit in with the world, and be who I thought I was, and wanting to please everyone and not thinking about me. So, to cut a very long story short, I think helping people is a really important thing. Helping and Johan being around, and especially yesterday, and to some extent over the weekend as well. It's possible he knew we were going to meet up, but I have felt him help me have clarity and more confidence and more balance and more connection, just helping me to go to that other level that's even more special for people, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Because those who come to see me, they're looking for a connection, or they're looking to watch what I do. And we had a police officer who came out the weekend, a detective, who sat in one of the shows, and I spoke to him afterwards, and he's like, what did I just witness? That didn't make sense to me logically. I can't believe what you were able to do. Yeah. And that's when it gets interesting. Or we have psychologists who come, or therapists who come, and they're sitting there and they're watching it from a professional perspective, from their perspective, thinking, how can you walk to someone and you know these details about them? And I'll take this as a compliment. We had a lady who came to the show yesterday, and she sent me a Facebook message last night, and she said, I went at the break, and I was hearing the people around the bar, and they were thinking you had actors and actresses in the audience. And I take that as the highest compliment. Highest
compliment, yeah.
That's the highest compliment. When people think, this is so insane, so incredible, so amazing, that how can it be?
Yeah. Now, we are happy and proud to hear that Johan is actually helping you in this, in getting better and reaching a higher level.
Yeah, so I think from what I've understood from him over the weekend, his view is, his authenticity and his truth and his manner, his integrity. Now, you have to remember, I've only communicated with this gentleman from a spiritual point of view.
Yeah.
I've never met the guy.
No. Is that an obstacle?
No, I think it's because I'm seeing him I'm connecting with him on a perspective that's very beautiful, actually. I don't see that as an obstacle. I meet many people for the first time as from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people do you think I've met?
Yeah, many,
over the
many.
last 6-7 weeks. Yeah. I've met, I don't know. I mean, all the shows I've done over the last 6-7 weeks, crazy amount of shows. So I'm meeting mums and dads and sons and daughters and uncles and aunts and opas and omas from a spiritual perspective for the first time, and I'm giving a personality, I'm giving a character to those who are there to communicate with them and validating their personality. Yeah. And I think that's really beautiful. And now I've never met Johan, so I was watching you there.
Yeah.
And I was seeing your reaction to what I'm saying.
Right. Right now, you mean right now?
Yeah, but when I was saying those words,
yeah.
You were saying to me, well, not saying to me, your reaction was, yeah, okay, I get it. I think there was a connection there.
Okay.
I mean, I've never met him.
No, we know him as you describe him, as a very helpful and kind man, because he did perform not for money, only for his petrol cost to drive back home. Yeah. Because he was saying, I'm doing it for the people. I want to help people. So the way you describe him is absolutely the way he is.
Yeah, but there's an integrity with him.
Yeah.
And there's also a detail.
Detail, yeah.
Detail.
Not only mentioning names.
No, detail. He's there's that detail that he's brought, helping me with detail. Yeah. Helping me with detail. Yeah. You know, I was with I'm with a mother who's lost her daughter, and she's coming through, and she's constantly rubbing here with her brother, and her brother had just broken his right wrist. So just little it's additions that just take it that little bit higher.
Yeah.
A little bit higher.
And we know he wasn't afraid of passing. Can I ask on behalf of our listeners, who are, I can describe some of them really as fans, because they sent in photos to our podcast and I like to hear his readings. Yeah. Is he happy? How is he doing? Is that a normal question to ask?
I can only answer that from the perspective of when I've connected with him, was he in a balanced, focused state?
He was, yes.
So it was as if he'd pushed away him and he's helping me and the other spirits who are around.
So that's a positive conclusion for this podcast. Een positieve besluit, ook dat we dat aan onze luisteraars kunnen doorgeven. Johan, het gaat goed met hem.
It's as if he's... Shall I put it from this perspective? Derek, I'm not important. The other people are more important.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now, wow, there's a phone even. There's a signal. There's a signal on my phone. Johan has heard us. Okay, I want to end this interview, Derek. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Your tour, Up Close and Personal. Where can we see it?
Well, we're at my website, derekogilvie.com. We're going on tour September, October, November, and in Belgium and the Netherlands. And if you fancy it, we're also in Bonaire and Curaçao at the end of the tour, if you want to come over there. They're always interesting shows as well.
Good locations.
Thank you. Wonderful locations.
Yeah.
Can I thank you so much? It's been a pleasure.
I want to thank you for being our guest and remembering Johan.
Absolutely.
Derek, thank you very much.
Bye-bye now.